Name's Sid. Just Sid.
Quantum Theory might be the worst, most generic title for a video game ever. Well, there's Returnal. Returnal is just the worst game title. Developed by Team Tachyon, this was their first, last, and only venture into the AAA space. The only other two games they released were Rygar, the legendary adventure for PS2, and Undead Nights for PSP. When I saw the first trailer for this at E3, I was stoked. As a stupid, annoying PS3 fanboy, I was down for anything that might knock Microsoft's gears off its pedestals. And this trailer really did make it look amazing to a tiny child who's easily tricked by pre-rendered cutscenes. It helped that it was originally announced as a PS3 exclusive. I think that's what made me excited for it in the first place. I bought Quantum Theory day one. I started it, and that's all I can remember.
Hey, are you listening to me?
Yeah, probably not. I'll shut up. Let's get right into it then. This is Quantum Theory. We begin with Sid and Nyx escaping a collapsing tower as the game's opening set-piece moment.
It's not over yet, Nyx. We still gotta get out.
Eventually, Sid ends up grabbing onto this crazy falling piece of terrain which he can somehow stick to.
Looks like there are still some Nosferatu left. Take him out, Sid!
At first glance, this looks identical to Gears of War. That's not a bad thing. Actually, the opposite. Linear cover shooters like this flooded the market in the PS360 era, but today they just aren't made anymore, and I miss them. They all have some sort of feature to differentiate them from one another. Binary Domain had the dismemberment mechanics, Inversion had the weird gravity feature, Matt Hazard was so awful that it was funny, but what makes Quantum Theory stand out? Well, it's the combat in general. Shooting enemies feels more in line with Matt Hazard than Gears of War. These guns lack weight. Enemy animations when they're hit loop over and over until they're dead, which will always result in them exploding into a massive pool of blood. I love the death animation so much just because it's so ridiculous taking out an enemy with a pistol and having them explode for no reason. If they didn't explode, I'd be complaining about how it feels like there's a frame or two of nothingness that plays out before the death animation, which makes every kill feel really strangely unfulfilling. This is still true, but they still die cool.
Something's wrong, Sid!
Damn, it's starting again.
Nyx begins succumbing to her illness. She keeps fighting, but she's struggling.
Yeah, the pain!
This is a really sad moment. Nyx is Sid's girlfriend. She's here to help Sid destroy an infected tower, knowing full well that the tower's destruction would cause her body to die for some currently unknown reason. Sid has no choice but to leave her behind, which he pretty immediately does without even saying goodbye. Sid is an absolute Chad. He hops on this weird worm and escapes.
There's nothing I can do.
Though there's many stories around the tower that Sid wants to destroy, the main one floating around is that it rose from the ground slowly over many years. Nobody's ever been inside of it. The Diablosis came out of the city and began destroying everything around it, eventually reaching Sid's colony. Militia from every colony around it teamed up for an assault on the tower, but it killed everybody that went near it. That's Sid's mission then. He wants to destroy these arcs, these towers. In this new post-apocalyptic world, enormous tower erosions have nearly wiped out all of humanity. Erosions are a phenomenon that mutates living organisms into monsters. The killer is these towers, which attracts enemies known as Diablosis. If any living thing comes in contact with the Diablosis, it becomes infected. They're like zombies. After a quick time jump, we see Sid at the bottom of the tower being held up by a militia squad who are also there to take out the tower. They're interested in Sid's weapon, which doesn't appear to be human.
I've never seen a weapon like that. You're not from this colony.
Unfortunately, they're interrupted by
Hostiles! Infected!
the militia group are side characters in this game. They all have little in the way of personalities, and there really isn't much to say about any of them. They're there, and they fight alongside Sid in the tower for a bit. Shiro and Lainey are voiced by Troy Baker and Laura Bailey, which is pretty cool. Later on, they voice Zolf and Elev as well. Troy Baker is Joel from The Last of Us, and Laura Bailey is Abby from The Last of Us 2. Sorry. And also Rain from Blood Rain. Hopefully this guy thinks she's voicing a more attractive person here compared to the girl in Binary Domain. Honestly, I feel like every game with both Laura Bailey and Troy Baker are all one connected universe. Almost every single main cast voice actor in this game did work on one or both of The Last of Us games. Just a weird thing I found. Unlike The Last of Us though, it's really hard to care about any of these characters. All of them have the personality of a doorstop. They're unmemorable, and if I didn't have 14 tabs about Quantum Theory opened on my computer, there's no way I could recite anything about any of them. them, not even Sid. This game is very much just waves of shooting enemies with guns. So how's the shooting? Well, the machine guns feel nice, which is good because that's what you're going to be using throughout most of the game. There's a couple different guns here that I'm classifying as machine guns, same with the shotguns and snipers, but honestly they all perform nearly identical to their counterparts. The particle accelerator is easily the best weapon in the game. It's just fun to use. It's all close range, but it kills anybody other than the boss battles pretty much instantly. It helps that all the combat encounters that give you the particle accelerator are inside the tower, which, spoilers, is when the game gets infinitely better. The ricochet bullet gun, this thing's total garbage. It does barely any damage when it hits. It fires way too slow, and the chances of hitting anybody with the ricochet bullets is minimal at best. Slightly better than the saw gun, but just barely. We'll get to the saw gun, but first check out this awful gun. This thing's the worst gun in any game ever. It fires slower than the pistol, it seems to do less damage than the pistol, it has less ammo than the pistol, and it takes up one of your 2 main weapon slots. This thing sucks. Alright, the saw gun. This thing is complete trash. Somehow worse than the last thing. It fires the slowest projectile of all time with the world's smallest hit zone, and it's impossible to use. The wait time between shots is just disgusting. The reload times are even worse. Here's the saw blade gun in Resistance. Now this. Just awful. I got stuck on a boss battle later in the game because all I had was the saw gun and the shotgun, making the entire thing practically impossible. Seriously, I tried so many times, but eventually I had no choice but to restart the entire mission so I could have different guns. That's just how the weapons work, by the way. There's 2 main weapons and a pistol. When you kill enemies, they don't drop ammo or weapons. You instead find weapons and ammo manually placed throughout the game by the developers. When you pick up ammo, it gives you an ammo boost for all weapons in your inventory. The melee hits are cool. If you don't have Nyx or Felena, we'll get to her. If you don't have one of those side women with you, you've got a regular punch, a running punch, and well, that's it. It honestly feels like a clunky multiplayer shooter, and it feels really low budget. That's how the first 2 hours of the game goes. Once you get to the tower and meet Felena though, this gets infinitely better. Let's do that then. Sid pushes forward with his new team of militia fighters to
Destroy that tower.
As Sid and his team push closer, they're met with the most intense defenses they could possibly have imagined. Shiro goes down, and it's incredibly sad.
Somebody pick up Shiro's Viper!
Sid grabs the Viper, Sid grabs the rocket launcher and blows up all the turret systems protecting the walls to the tower. They kill everybody outside. Laura Bailey puts an explosive on the door, which for some reason takes
60 seconds
to explode. What an inconvenient explosive. When it finally goes off,
Damn it, that didn't even leave a scratch.
Sid has no choice but to use his fists, which are even more powerful than C4. Inside the tower, the team is met with a massive amount of defenses. They book it up the stairs, somehow avoiding all the gunshots. But Sid's team starts getting taken out. One by one, they all begin dying. Sid nears closer to the closing door, and only himself, a black guy, and some other white guy make it through. Unfortunately, the black guy gets instantly taken out. Sid dodges all their bullets, but then the other white guy gets hit in the leg. Even with the injured leg, the white guy manages to survive the fight. Even after being exploded by a rocket launcher, he gets up and keeps fighting alongside Sid.
Let's go.
All right.
Damn. Sid is now farther into the Ark than any human has ever been. He's solo. He's alone, ready to push forward and take it out the only way he knows how. By punching stuff. I really like this game's art style. It's really dark and gritty, yet the inside of this tower is oddly beautiful. I really like it. Eventually he runs into Felena. Felena's goal is to find her father, who we learn is the creator of the tower. She kills anybody and everybody standing in her way, whether it be the Nosferatu or the Gilskin. Nosferatu are the guards of the towers. They act entirely on instinct. Gilskins are artificially enhanced humans that were created by the process of Diablosis. It's spoilers, but it's what Sid is. Sid helps her take out a bunch of Nosferatu, and they appear to reach a mutual understanding and part ways, but she has no idea why Sid's in this tower. He sees a massive punchable thing in the distance. He runs forward, and he punches the thing.
Hey! What do you think you're doing?
It's the first boss battle. It's Felena. Using the rocket launcher, you can just keep knocking her over endlessly until she's dead, making this the world's easiest boss battle, honestly. Once she's down, Sid walks over to the punchable thing. It's actually called a luminosynthetic reactor. He raises his fists, and the floor begins collapsing. Sid falls to his death. Oops. Sid and Felena fend off an endless barrage of enemies while the building collapses around them. Everything is crumbling with nowhere to go. Death is inevitable, but somehow they manage to outrun the collapsing building, jumping over to one random bit of terrain that for some reason didn't collapse. They talk and learn their backstories. Sid learns that Felena is trying to get to the top of the tower to find her father. Felena learns that Sid is trying to get to the top of the tower to destroy it. Despite being enemies, they form a truce to try to learn the origins of the tower. She was shocked that when Sid punched that punchable thing earlier, it temporarily stopped the Nosferatu. There. We now have the second girl character fighting alongside us. Back to the melee combat. You're now able to tap L2 to throw her to stun enemies, or hold it to pretty much instant kill anybody. The melee gets beefed up too. When you melee, you get a little melee combo thing using square and triangle. You can see it down here. These require pretty precise timings, but look cool and it's fun to pull off. Back to where we left off with the guns now. Look at this grenade launcher. It's garbage. You have to aim crazy high up as if the grenades are made out of styrofoam, then just to hope for the best. It's fun when you get the hang of it, but it takes multiple grenade hits to kill most enemies. Let's maybe try the sniper. No, the sniper is awful. It does barely any damage when it hits and has barely any ammo. The first time you get the sniper, you get swarmed by a bunch of giant enemies and fast enemies that spawn up close to you. Dumb. Let's try the rocket launcher. That's more like it. This feels way better to use. It's got a solid radius and does a ton of damage, it looks cool, and it sounds cool. The pistol has an awful rate of fire and super low damage, but it has a ton of ammo. They're just stock weapons that feel super mediocre no matter what you pick. The inability to switch shoulders when you're aiming is super annoying, because there's quite a few bits of cover in this game that you just can't stick to for no reason. You're often left positioning yourself to stand behind things to absorb incoming bullets, and you're unable to shoot your target because you can't switch shoulders. I hate when games do this so much, one of my biggest pet peeves. The cover system itself is also super mediocre. You typically snap on to cover fine, but getting off of it feels clunky and awkward every single time. Swapping from cover to cover, the most basic feature of any game like this? Nope, not possible. If you want to roll out from cover, you tap circle and the direction, but you'll rarely roll out somewhere where you want to be. When you're in cover, if you want to pop up and shoot an enemy, you'll need to center them on the screen before you pop up. There's no aim assist whatsoever. You get used to it. The game often throws curved hallways at you that are too sharp to turn while you're running. These little things stack up like crazy. There are mounted turret sections as well, where you clear the room using a turret, or these missions where you ride on this floating rock thing that Sid can somehow hang on to, but these are really rare and also really mediocre. As a result, it all feels really repetitive and uninspired. The boss battles are a bit more interesting. We'll skip this one since we already talked about it. The spider fight afterwards looks super cool though. He shoots fireballs and targets that you've got to hit, but honestly, the entire fight can be beaten by just holding L1 and tapping R1 over and over again, or holding R1. The third boss is this big guy. You've got to hit him over and over until you reveal his weak spot. Honestly, it's kind of a whatever fight. They start getting better now. The next one is basically the end of the first Uncharted game. You've got to shoot the orange sap that's all over the ground to blow it up and damage him. Then there's this big old bird. This thing's sick. Its weak spots are obviously its wings, but it's hard to hit because it constantly throws fireballs at you, dives at you, flies around in circles, and just in general is really annoying. Still by far the most fun boss battle so far. More fun than this guy. It's basically the same as that other guy whose weak spot was on the center of his chest, but the next ones are cooler. This one is 2 boss battles in 1. This was the most infuriating thing in the entire world. Most of the time, I would spawn and I'd be dead within seconds. It didn't help that my gun selection was total garbage, and my ammo was practically non-existent. Eventually, I beat him by memorizing the locations of all the weapons and ammo, and strategically timing my runs. Once he's down, it goes into Phase 2, but Phase 2 is infinitely easier since you're just fighting one guy and his attacks can be dodge rolled. But then, he goes into Stage 3. Worst part of the whole game right here. This is just bad. Alright, so there's these big red targets that you need to shoot, and a spiral staircase that goes up around him. The thing is, you can't move the camera left or right while you're running, so you need to stop and turn to see if you're beside a weak point. Problem is, you're also dealing with literally endless waves of respawning machine guns and grenade launcher drones that have unlimited ammo. Also, the big guy hits you if you stand still for even a few seconds. This entire thing was so infuriating, and that's actually the final boss at the top of the tower. Once he's down, the entire tower begins to crumble, piece by piece.
We stopped the Diabluses. It's over.
But it's not over. They begin climbing the spiral staircase to the top of the tower. There are incubation pods here, filled with humans. At the top, they see videos of themselves playing all over the skybox. Sid wants to destroy the giant blob, which is her father. She aims at Sid's head. She explains that she, in fact, wants to destroy the tower. They both then begin shooting at it. It's the final mission. This is where they get to destroy the tower. I suppose looking back at the game, it was okay. I really loved any mission that had fluid and constantly adjusting cover. These parts of the game made the inside of the tower feel alive, like you're fighting inside a Leviathan's stomach or something. These parts of the game are also the only thing that differentiates it from being the most generic shooter I've ever played in my life. The back-to-back boss battles at the end were also pretty cool, but overall, I can't recommend playing through this. I'm sorry for not summing up the story in the usual way, but it's honestly just too boring. Let's get back to the end. Sid walks up to Felena's dad. He raises his fists. And just like that, he's completed his mission. The tower continues to crumble. Beams of light shoot up to the sky, through outer space, and light up numerous other towers around the world. And the lights go out. That's a wrap on Quantum Theory. If you liked the video, feel free to do the things. That's all I got though. Alright, love you guys. Peace.